Okay, let's get into it. Today, we're diving deep into something, well, truly fundamental. We're talking about those tiny, often completely invisible parts that are, quite literally, the bedrock of almost every piece of modern electronics you own or use. MLCCs, resistors, and inductors.
Right. You interact with these things constantly, probably without even realizing it. They're not the flashy bits like the screen or the processor, but they're absolutely essential.
Essential how exactly?
Well, they manage the flow of electricity, they filter signals, they basically make sure all the complex parts inside your phone or computer can actually talk to each other and, work properly.
So kind of like the vital plumbing and wiring hidden inside the walls of a building.
That's a great analogy. Yeah. Inside your phone, your car, even satellites way up there. And while each one is tiny, the whole market for them, it's immense. And it's growing.
That's what we're digging into today, right? We've got some source material, a market analysis, a forecast, and our mission is to unpack that data. We want to understand the surprising scale of this industry and where it's heading.
Exactly. This analysis has a ton of data points, global figures, regional breakdowns, growth drivers. We're going to pull out the key insights from that source material to give you a clear picture of this sort of hidden infrastructure that powers so much of our world.
All right, let's jump right in. First off, maybe let's properly nail down why these components are so critical. The source material calls them a fundamental segment of the electronics value chain. What does that actually mean in practice?
It means they're foundational. They ensure something the source calls signal integrity, basically making sure electrical signals carry information cleanly without distortion or noise.
Okay, so keeping the messages clear.
Precisely. And they're crucial for energy efficiency too, making sure devices use power smartly, minimizing waste heat. That's incredibly important.
Right, nobody wants a phone that overheats or a battery that drains instantly.
Exactly. And also electromagnetic compatibility EMC. That's vital. It stops your car's Wi-Fi from messing with, say, the anti-lock brakes. They boost overall performance and cut down energy loss. Absolutely essential as everything gets smaller, faster.
And hungrier for power, I
You
guess.
got it.
And where are we seeing the biggest demand for these, according to the source?
Oh, everywhere, really. But the source highlights compact, high-frequency devices. Think smartphones getting thinner but more powerful, tablets, satellites. Systems need them for super reliable communication, and a huge one, electric powertrains and EVs. Massive
Big.
demand there.
Wow, yeah, that covers a huge swath of modern tech. Okay, so we get their role. Let's zoom out. The global market picture, what kind of scale are we talking about here? The source had some numbers.
The numbers are pretty eye-opening. Globally, this market was valued at just under $6 billion back in 2021, 5,921.9 million to be exact.
Okay, nearly $6 billion in 2021, a solid starting point. Where does the source see it going from there?
Well, it projects growth to $7,420 million by 2025, so over $7.4 billion pretty soon. But the longer view, looking out to 2033, the forecast hits $11,649 million.
$11.6 billion. Wow. So it's basically on track to almost double in that, what, 12-year period from 2021?
That's right. The source calculates the compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, over that whole 2021 to 2033 period at 5.8%.
5.8% annually. That's pretty healthy, sustained growth. What's fueling this, globally speaking? Did the source identify key drivers?
It did. And their themes we've already touched on. The explosion of compact, high-frequency devices, the massive rollout of 5G infrastructure across the globe, the huge expansion in automotive electronics, especially electric vehicles, and growth in industrial automation systems.
It really sounds like the demand for these tiny parts is directly tied to, well, pretty much all the major tech shifts happening right now.
That's exactly what the analysis suggests. The overall market trend is strong expansion. It's driven by innovation, by the sheer increasing complexity of the devices we all rely on, and this really fundamental shift towards electrification and automation in like almost every industry.
Okay, clear upward trend globally, linked to these big mega trends. But, markets aren't uniform. How does it break down regionally? Where's the action hottest, according to this analysis?
Well, the standout region by far is Asia Pacific. It's the largest globally. The source shows its value going from roughly $2.2 billion in 2021, that's $2,194.1 million, up to a projected $4.5 billion, nearly $4.6 billion, $4,548.9 million by 2033.
Wow, so almost half the entire global market is expected to be in Asia-Pacific by 2033.
Yeah, it's huge. And it also has the highest regional growth rate forecast, a 6.4% CAGR.
And within Asia-Pacific, who are the big players?
China, unsurprisingly, is dominant. It's the world's electronics manufacturing hub, right? The source projects China's market alone to hit nearly $2 billion, $1,989.3 million by 2033. And the drivers mentioned, again, rapid growth in EVs and 5G.
There they are again, EVs and 5G. Seems unavoidable. The source mentioned India too, I think. Something about high growth.
It did, yeah. India actually shows the highest growth rate within Asia-Pacific, forecasted a pretty remarkable 6.9% CAGR. The analysis points to strong government initiatives supporting local manufacturing as a key factor there.
Interesting. So policy is playing a direct role. What about other key countries in that region? Japan, Korea.
Yeah.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
Other key countries in that region? Japan, Korea.
Yeah. Japan shows consistent, strong demand, projected to reach about $476 million, 475.8 MN, by 2033. South Korea, another major electronics player, also growing steadily, expected to hit around $259 million. 259.3 MN.
Okay.
Australia's market is expanding too, linked to things like smart city projects and grid modernization. And then you have Southeast Asia, places like Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand. They're significant contributors, with growth tied to their strong OEM presence and electronics exports. Projected to reach about $643 million, 643.2 M collectively.
Right. So Asia-Pacific is really the powerhouse. Yeah. Manufacturing scale, EVs, 5G, specific government pushes like in India. Yeah. It all adds up. How does North America compare?
North America is the second largest region. The source put its value at about $1.7 billion, $194.2 million in 2033.
That growth sounds like it's tracking pretty close to the global average KGR we talked about.
It is. Very close. The U.S., of course, leads the region by a large margin, expected to be over $2.6 billion, 2,633.9 cents by 2033. And what's interesting here, according to the source, is that alongside consumer tech and EVs, there's really sustained demand from sectors like aerospace, defense, and high-tech manufacturing driving the U.S. market specifically.
Ah, okay. Industries where reliability is absolutely paramount, I imagine.
Exactly. High-spec, high-reliability components needed there. Canada's market is growing too, linked to renewable energy projects and telecom network upgrades. And Mexico shows strong growth, fueled by its automotive sector and consumer electronics manufacturing. It's projected to reach $214 million by 2033.
Makes sense. Mexico's role in auto manufacturing is significant. Okay, let's hop across the Atlantic. Europe, what's the story there, according to the source?
Europe's another major market, valued at just under $1.5 billion, $1,493.5 million in 2021, and projected to grow to over $2.8 billion, $2,833 million by 2033. Its CAGR is pegged at 5.6%, again, very close to that global average.
And the drivers? Similar mix.
Pretty similar themes, yeah. Germany leads in Europe, largely thanks to its very strong automotive and industrial manufacturing base. Projected value there is $524.1 million by 2033.
Automotive and industrial.
Okay. The UK is significant too, with demand boosted by its telecommunications and defense industries, looking at $331.5 million by 2033. France shows steady growth, reaching $314.5 million. You see those key sectors, auto, industrial, telecom, defense, popping up again.
It is interesting how those specific high-value industries appear as drivers across different developed economies.
It really is. Italy is projected to reach $153 million. Russia is forecast to hit $362.6 million by 2033. Spain and Luxembourg are also mentioned as contributors. And the source notes that the rest of Europe category, which includes Eastern and Northern European countries, has seen significant growth too as advanced electronics adoption increases there. That segment is projected to hit $781.9 million.
Okay, so Europe. Solid, diverse growth tied closely to its traditional industrial and high-tech strengths. What about the smaller markets?
Yeah.
South America and the Middle East and Africa.
Right. Smaller currently, but definitely growing. South America started just over $100 million, 101.6 M in 2021, and is forecast to reach about $259 million, 258.6 M by 2033.
So more than doubling, albeit from a lower base.
Exactly. Brazil's the dominant player there. But the source also highlights growth in Argentina, projected 82 millimeters by 2033, Colombia, $53.04, Peru, $32.05, and Chile, $29.06. And the key driver mentioned, digital devices and automotive electronics starting to really gain traction across the continent.
Automotive and digital again. It's a global pattern. and MEA, Middle East and Africa.
Also smaller scale, but seeing increasing demand. Growth drivers there are linked to gradual infrastructure upgrades, digital transformation projects, think smart infrastructure, telecom network expansions, and some defense tech developments. Key areas mentioned are Egypt, projected $42.08 by 2033, Turkey, $37 to 2 Ms, and the rest of the Middle East, 62 Ms.
So even in regions maybe not known as tech manufacturing hubs, the fundamental drivers like infrastructure upgrades and telecom are pulling demand for these components.
That's what the data suggests.
Okay, so we've done the global overview, we've drilled down into the regions, Asia-Pacific leading, North America and Europe strong, others growing. How do we connect these dots? What's the big takeaway when you put it all together?
I think what really stands out is how consistently those key drivers, 5G, electric vehicles, industrial automation, defense, aerospace, appear across almost all regions. It's not just one or two places. It's a global phenomenon.
Right.
And seeing that pattern repeat really highlights how interconnected this component market is with these massive technological shifts that are reshaping, well, everything.
It drives home that these aren't just commodity parts growing randomly.
Yeah.
Their growth is actually mapping the evolution of technology worldwide. They're the quiet enablers, like you said earlier.
Precisely. As devices get smarter, more connected, smaller, more energy efficient, the demand for more and often more sophisticated MLCCs, resistors, and inductors just keeps rising. This market analysis isn't just showing growth figures, it's charting our increasing global reliance on these fundamental bits of electronics.
So wrapping this up, what does this deep dive mean for you listening right now?
Well, it means that this market, for parts you probably never consciously think about, is forecast to be an over $11.6 billion global industry by 2033. It's huge, it's vital, and it's clearly growing.
Right. These incredibly tiny pieces are inside the phone you might be using to listen to this. They're critical to the electric vehicle transition. They form the backbone of the 5G networks rolling out. They run the automated factories. Understanding this market is, in a way, understanding the very foundation of our modern tech world.
It definitely gives you a new perspective on the gadgets and systems all around us.
It really does. And it leads to a final thought, maybe. Given how closely this market's growth, based on the source material we looked at, mirrors the rise of massive trends like EVs, 5G, and automation. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other emerging technologies might be quietly creating huge, unseen demand for these kinds of fundamental electronic components right now? What tiny pieces are paving the way for the next big leap, the one we aren't even talking about widely yet? Something to think about next time you pick up your phone or see an EV drive by.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're doing a deep dive into a part of technology you're using constantly, like every minute, probably without even, thinking about it.
Right.
We're talking about those absolutely essential but kind of invisible building blocks. Things like MLCCs, resistors, inductors.
Yeah, they aren't the flashy parts.
Yeah.
The big processors or screens that grab headlines.
Yeah.
But honestly, without them, none of that cool tech would even switch on. We've got some interesting bits here from a recent market trends report.
Right.
And our goal, really, is to cut through the data and see what's really driving this market. It's critical stuff.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because these tiny things, these passive components, they're literally everywhere. Your smartphone, the car, maybe that smart...
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
They're literally everywhere. Your smartphone, the car, maybe that smart speaker, they are just packed. I mean, packed with them.
Indispensable, that's the word.
Yeah.
The report really hammers this home. Like, take your phone or your fitness tracker. They can have hundreds, maybe thousands even, of these tiny MLCCs inside.
Sure.
Just managing signals, power, filtering noise. The report highlights how manufacturers, in China, South Korea, Japan, they're constantly scrambling just to source enough for these super fast product cycles.
Hundreds or thousands in
Right.
just one device.
Yeah.
Yeah, that puts it in perspective.
Yeah.
And it gets even more interesting, I think, when you look at cars, especially EVs and, well, all the autonomous driving tech coming online.
Absolutely.
All those systems, ADS, battery management, the infotainment stuff, they need huge numbers of these tiny high-performance parts.
Exactly. And what's fascinating, the report points this out, is the massive demand specifically for automotive-grade MLCCs. We're talking components built to withstand, well, some pretty tough conditions. Companies like Murata, TDK, Samsung Electromechanics. They're pouring money into developing these really robust parts.
Yeah.
AEC Q200 compliant.
AEC Q200 compliant. Okay, that sounds technical. What does that actually mean here?
Good question. Basically, think of AEC Q200 as the car industry's seal of approval for these passive parts. It means they've passed really tough tests, things like extreme temperatures, humidity, vibration. Essentially, they're certified not to conk out when stuck in a hot engine bay or getting shaken around constantly. Reliability is just, non-negotiable in a vehicle.
Right, yeah. You definitely don't want those failing at 70 miles an hour. And it's not just gadgets and cars, is it? The report also talks about 5G rollout, the whole Internet of Things explosion. Those are huge drivers, too.
Huge.
And that needs a different kind of component again, right? Like specialized RF parts, really low signal loss, stable in different temperatures for base stations, network gear, all those smart city sensors.
Exactly. So you've got this picture emerging, right? Demand is accelerating across these massive sectors.
Yeah.
But, and this is a big but in the report, it's not all smooth sailing. There's ongoing supply chain disruption. That's flagged as a major persistent issue.
Right. And not just general shipping stuff. This report gets specific. It talks about shortages of critical raw materials, things like special ceramic powders, nickel, palladium, the actual ingredients.
Absolutely. Palladium, for instance, it's a precious metal. Its price, its availability can be super volatile, depends on mining, geopolitics. In places like Russia or South Africa, nickel prices have also jumped around a lot. And these material constraints, they hit manufacturing directly, cause price swings, limit how many components can actually be made.
Yeah, I can see how that would be especially tough for maybe smaller companies, the ones without the huge buying power or cash reserves to lock in stable supplies.
Definitely. And this ties into another big challenge the report stresses, miniaturization. Every single year, we want more power and smaller gadgets.
Yeah.
So these passive components, they have to shrink like crazy, but at the same time, they need more capacitance or need to handle more power and stay just as reliable, if not more so.
That sounds fundamentally difficult, like a material science puzzle. It's not just making it smaller, right? It's keeping it working perfectly at that tiny scale.
Precisely. It takes incredibly precise manufacturing, serious R&D into new materials, new designs. And that R&D cost, as the report notes, is a huge barrier, especially if you're not one of the giants with massive budgets.
So where's this all heading then? The report mentions some strategic shifts happening, like a trend towards embedded passives.
Yes, that's a big one. Embedding them directly into the circuit board or even into the chip packaging itself.
Why do that?
Well, it saves precious space, for one. And it can improve signal integrity, which matters a lot in really dense designs like, advanced wearables or medical implants or high-performance computing. It's a real shift in design philosophy.
Okay. And besides the tech evolution, the report also mentions industry consolidation and vertical integration, big players buying up smaller ones or even getting involved with raw material suppliers.
Yeah, that's definitely happening. And it's not just about grabbing market share, it's strategic. It's about getting control over the whole chain stabilizing costs, securing those essential raw materials that are getting tight, making themselves more resilient to, say, geopolitical shocks. Joint ventures are common, too.
So it feels like this whole market, MLCCs, resistors, inductors, it's really at this fascinating point, kind of a crossroads. On one side, you have this relentless innovation pushing demand, smaller, more powerful, more reliable parts needed everywhere. And on the other side, they're wrestling with these really significant practical problems like dependency on specific raw materials and the sheer technical difficulty of shrinking things down while boosting performance.
Yeah, that sums it up well. The future path of so much tech we use daily really depends on how well the industry manages those material dependencies and overcomes the hurdles of miniaturization and performance at the same time.
So it really makes you think, given how absolutely vital these tiny, often overlooked components are for your phone, your car, medical tech, everything, and how much they depend on specific materials and these complex global supply chains, what does all this pressure on their market mean for the future? For the cost, the availability, maybe even the design of the technology we all rely on every single day? It's kind of mind-boggling, the invisible complexity behind it all.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.